So now as we're parenting, we're like, what do we do? And the bigger question for me is like, how is this shaping them? How is technology and social media affecting their development, their brains, their faith? So just to throw that question out there, because I know it's one that many of us parents are wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, of course we could spend hours on this. It's big, it's huge when we're talking about how the digital world is shaping young people. And, the reality is we are out of touch as adults. Even those of us who really try hard, we did not grow up in the same world. And that world is moving fast, and it's the only world they've ever known. They're just trying to make their way in it. But it is absolutely shaping how they answer their questions, because it becomes the environment in which, they're working these things out. One of the things, I mean, just a few thoughts, one around identity, as we know and, have seen, and we actively kind of see this play out. A lot of teenagers, they sort of feel like they have to work on their personal brand. Every moment becomes a broadcast opportunity. And, if you've ever seen a teenager take 300 pictures of themselves and then try to sort out the best two to post, I mean, it's that, like, there's that. And then there's also the sort of becoming internet famous part of it that seems to be something to long for, and but I think we write all that off. But it is part of the work of identity. It's part of how they're working it out and some of the cues they're getting. And so being there with them to help them navigate, what's real and what's not, and how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel about yourself? Those are important questions for us to ask, but not to just sort of write it off or to shame them. We can't shame them for the only world that they have been given by adults, honestly, right? So there's also, social media can be a real source of belonging, and it can facilitate purpose. There are kids who find connection on social media. So many kids they're connecting most in social spaces with the people they also connect with in real life. So for a majority of teenagers, that's true. That's not true for all. And others, they're finding ways to be activists and to speak out and to, or to organize through social media and to, really work out their purpose in those spaces too. We should say, though, I mean, of course, there's an important caveat here that the research case is building for delaying when we let them into these spaces. More and more, the research is showing that the earlier teenagers are active on these platforms, and preteens, the more social media complicates their search for identity, belonging, and purpose. It gets tied up. They're more at risk for trouble with mental health concerns, with physical health, and all kinds of other things that are just important to the work of adolescence. So, that case is really being built. And I think it's something for us to pay attention to, again, without shaming them, without judging them. Maybe we can, another piece there for kids who are active and we have questions, again, as leaders or as parents, to just ask, how do you feel about your social media use these days? How do you think it impacts your friendships? Do you think it's making your friendships better or worse, or not really having an impact? Even if they don't really want to answer a question like that, it can get them thinking about what is social media doing for them. And it's complicated. I think it's complicated for adults too.
Right. And I feel like my two older ones have phones, and their relationship with social media is different. Their personalities are different. So one who is really seeking belonging has a hard time disengaging from social media because she's looking so hard for belonging.
Yeah.
And the other one asks us, is we have a time limit that we have, like a certain set of time, like amount of time they can be on certain apps. And is saying, can you decrease the amount of time? I don't want to be on it that much. So she's asking for like us to like decrease her time because she's like, I don't want to be distracted. So it's just kind of all over the map depending on each kid, I feel. But I think what you said, Brad, like they're working out these questions of identity, belonging, and purpose in this, on digital world. And we want to help them do that the best way without exposing them to like a lot of the negative things on social media. And that's hard because there's both the positive and the negative. And, this is probably something that a lot of us face too, is like there are teens who are just withdrawn and disengaged. And no matter how much we're, trying to like connect with them or prompt them to talk to us, they just don't. So I'm just wondering if you have any pointers for Jess.
Yeah, well, I'd love to take that. My daughter's name is Jessica, so I have a bias there. So it's fun to have a question from a Jessica. My favorite way to think about that actually comes. I'll tell you a story of a mom I met some years ago who came up to me after I spoke, and she said, my teenage son, he does not want to talk with me. And I asked him, like, do you want to go out to eat or get some coffee? And he'll say no. Do you want to go shopping? That's a strong no. And she said, I've really struggled with spending time with him or having any conversation with him. But she said, I finally realized that my son is really into movies. And so she said, I don't really like movies, but I've become a student of movies because my son is into movies. And so I know what's releasing soon. I know a lot about directors and actors and genres and all this that I've brushed up on myself because it's important to my son. And she said, the only time my son wants to spend time with me is when I ask him if he wants to go to a movie. And so she said, I try to pick movies that are a little bit deeper. And then this really wise mom, she said, I even buy tickets at a theater that's further away geographically than I need, because she says my best conversations are on the drive home from movies. And so I want that extra 7 minutes because that's when I get to connect with my boy. And so I just really admire this mom because she's not into movies, but because her son is, she's become into movies. And so she can have conversations. I am not a crafty person. I do not like arts and crafts. One of our kids was really into arts and crafts. And so there was a season where I sucked it up and went to arts and craft stores and, we did stuff together. Luckily, that child is no longer so into arts and crafts. But nonetheless, like I had to lean into what was important to that child. So I just think that example from that mom is so powerful. Like, what is your kid into? Is it the Marvel universe? Is it, what is it on social media? And how can you study up on that so that you can have better conversations? Is it video gaming? There's a lot of parents who would, rather vacuum than play video games, but because their kids are into video games, they've said, you know what, I'm going to learn. And then I'm going to let my teenager teach me, which puts the teenager in kind of an authoritative position, which is a good thing for the family dynamic. So whatever it is, whether it's arts and crafts, video games, movies, how can we lean into what's important for our young person?
That's so good. My husband was just telling me yesterday, why don't you play Roblox with Hannah, because that's what she loves.
Yeah.
And, I have no desire, but I think the fact that I heard that from him yesterday and this from you, Kara, I'm like, okay, maybe we need to be doing
Roblox, here you come, Joyce.
Yes.
Yeah. Even the power of showing interest, of even just, I remember one dad saying it was like a breakthrough moment when he asked his teenage son, can I just watch you play this game? Like, can you just show me and explain it to me so that I understand? Because I know you're really into it. And his son, he was so surprised. His son said, of course. And he was shocked because he'd been getting the wall, like the
bad wall.
Yeah, but it opened up something. And I think, for that dad, it was shifting from, he had been dismissive and kind of judgmental about that gaming was so much of an interest. And when he shifted to be curious and to let his son be the expert and be interesting, that shifted something.